my ex-wife to me on our wedding night.
I'm looking forward to completing your training. In time, you will call me Master.
Me on day one of sober October when I decided to give it a try next year instead. And this is me to the supervisors on the Tesco self-checkout tills who are my only human interaction most days.
Yeah, I f***ing die for you lot. F***ing die for you.
Hello folks, welcome back to the show. So today we're going to do a comparison between original Creed Aventus and the new flanker Aventus Absolu, of which I have a flanker which I've been trying out. We'll also do a little comparison with Club de Nuit in Sense Man, just for fun, by Armaf. So Aventus 2010 release, one of the most famous, probably the most famous niche fragrance in the world, hugely popular. Some people say not the same as it used to be when it first came out, reformulated they say, and not as good, not as strong, not as smoky, not as complex as it used to be. But we have a new version, a flanker to Aventus called Absolu Aventus, which has got a lot of talk in the community, just kind of coming out now. And they're both expensive fragrances, of course. I think the Aventus, rough something, 200 odd pounds for the 100ml version. This is a 50ml, and I believe the Absolu Aventus 75ml is going to be £285 or something. So both expensive. This is my sort of follow-up then. So I did a first impression on Absolu Aventus, and I've got to be honest with you guys. My opinion hasn't massively changed on the fragrance. Let me know if you've tried it yet and how excited are you or otherwise about this new release. So opening notes on the Absolu Aventus: blackcurrant, grapefruit and bergamot. Gone is the pineapple note from the original. Middle notes of cardamom, ginger, cinnamon, citron, and base notes of patchouli, pink pepper and vetiver. Okay, so I've got it on here. And the Absolu Aventus then, if we compare to the original, it's somewhat smoother. And I don't mean just smooth as in it's better that something's smooth, but it feels like it has less sharp edges than Aventus, which does have some quite prickly sharp edges, if you know what I mean, in its scent profile, with the juicy, very citrusy, sharp pineapple and also the birch tar leather undertone. Now, if you contrast that with Absolu Aventus, people have been drawing comparisons with things like Sauvage Elixir or Sauvage Parfum by Dior. I'm not sure. I think that's maybe somebody said that and people have latched onto it. It's just become a thing in people's minds. I don't think it is still an Aventus version, but it does depart from Aventus quite a bit, and I think it's got more of a kind of, if we say that this Absolu Aventus is somewhat smoky too, it's in a sort of incensey way. It's kind of a little bit like that incense accord in Bleu de Chanel, the original 2010 or the Eau de Parfum version, which is not a bad thing. It just smooths everything out from the slightly vibrant, prickly, and almost a little bit aggressive on the nostrils Aventus. So for me, overall, the Absolu Aventus is very, very pleasant, very wearable, almost less polarizing and probably more likely to please the average nose, maybe a bit more than Aventus. You know how some people are really into Aventus, but then it turns out ladies in their life don't love it that much. It's not really meant to be a panty dropper in reality for many people, because it seems to be something men just like the smell of. If I'm honest, Absolu Aventus seems a little bit more like a pleasing to everybody type smell. It's smoothed out. It doesn't have an obvious pineapple sharpness, although the original Aventus, I wouldn't say pineapple leaps out, but it's a little less vibrant and bright, and I pick up less on the patchouli undertone and a little bit more of a smooth, incensey kind of resinous undertone with this one, which is perfectly pleasant but doesn't actually excite me much. So if I had to pick, I actually would still say stick with the original Aventus, because it seems more of a unique fragrance. It's hardly unique now, everyone else has copied it, but compared to anything that came before, this one has this it's not going to satisfy your urge for Aventus if you wanted Absolu Aventus and hoped it would just be a longer lasting version or back to the glory days of the original batches. It doesn't do that. I think original Aventus, even in its somewhat attenuated form of the modern formula, is your better bet for a really fantastic and interesting and high quality fragrance. Personally, there are other Creed fragrances I like more, but if I had to choose between these two, I would go the original, even in the modern form. Having compared all three on skin and dug my nose in, Club de Nuit Intense Man by Armaf, which you can pick up for about £25, is still a viable alternative. 100% when you smell them up close, there is a lower quality. This one has a harsher aura about it that decreases somewhat with time as it dries down, but there is a definite difference in quality. The Absolu, very nice and smooth, bit sharper on the original Aventus, but you can tell the quality. Sometimes we bullshit a bit. I do think the quality of ingredients can be smelled on those two. This one in the air, though, of all three, performs the best. Aventus Original performs the least well, my 2019 batch, and Absolu Aventus does seem on what I can tell so far, because it's not an exact science, Absolu Aventus lasts longer than the original Aventus, in my opinion, from the batches that I've got. But the Club to Nuit Intense Man is the strongest and might just get you the most compliments. It's a little harsher, but there isn't it's not a million miles away from Aventus original in the air. So it's a perfectly viable option if you don't want to spend £200-300 on a fragrance. What do you guys think of that? Please let me know in the comments down below. That's probably it from me on the Absolu Aventus subject. I'll move back to 1980s old granddad smells, which are my natural home, soon. If you liked the video, please subscribe. Even if you didn't, maybe subscribe anyway. Maybe the next video will be better. It could hardly be any worse. And remember, whatever we're doing in life, let's project. And although life may sometimes stink, at least we can always smell good. Bye-bye.